Let's take a look for just a minute at teacher benefit costs. Schools try to do everything possible to make sure that they hire and retain the best teachers. In order to do that, they need to make sure that they have an employee benefits package that generally includes health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, retirement plans, vision care, perhaps fitness, paid vacation leave, personal leave, sick leave, and possibly child care. Now let's dive in a little bit closer and look at insurance. Insurance is vital for every employee, especially in this time of the pandemic. Now on the screen, you'll see that there is an employer contribution, meaning the school, and a worker contribution, meaning the teacher. So if you have a typical HMO plan, the plan itself would cost almost $8,000. The school would pick up the cost of about $6,700, and the teacher would pay about $1,200 a year. Now, if you look at family coverage, the total plan costs slightly more than $22,000 a year. $17,000 of that cost is absorbed by the school, and the teacher is paying roughly $5,000. And you'll see the different types of plans on the screen. The thing to remember is, from the teacher's standpoint, it might seem like a lot of money that they're paying for their insurance. But when you look at the school's contribution, you see a much different picture. Now, retirement is something that younger teachers think about, but not quite as much as perhaps someone that's been at the school for 10 years. There are generally two types of plans, a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan. In the defined benefits plan, the school pays 100% of the amount that goes into the retirement fund. It assumes that the teacher is going to be there until retirement age. But the school decides how that money is invested. The teacher has nothing to do with how those funds are invested. Now, in a defined contribution plan, the employee pays into a 403B plan. Now, many schools have a matching program on top of the defined contribution. But in the defined contribution, the individual teacher takes responsibility for the investment of the monies in that account. Now again, in a defined benefits plan, the school assumes all the investment. Now that also generally means that the amount of money that you get will be substantially less. Now in this particular case, they're using 30 years of service. The final compensation amount is $100,000, and the benefit, 1%. So imagine if you've been there 30 years and you've only made $50,000 a year as your final salary. 1% of that is not enough to keep you safe and healthy in your retirement years. Now, there's also such a thing called vesting. In terms of the 403Bs, but on the screen you see 401k, again, very similar. The 403B is for nonprofits. But the vesting information is important because only 28% of all the companies in the United States allow you to be fully vested. 13% say you're fully vested in 1 year. 7% 2. 3 years, only 14%. 5 years, 17%. What that means is to be fully vested, that if you leave after that amount of time, let's say 4 years or 5 years, you will be entitled to the money, the matching funds that the school has provided. If you leave after 2 or 3 years, but the vesting in your school is 5 years, you get $0 from the money that the school invested. You only get the amount of money that you contributed. That's an important thing for administrators as well as for teachers to understand. Again, you see the employer match. If you're 50 or older, there is the possibility of the employee, the teacher, doing a catch-up contribution. And for 2022, the employees can contribute up to $20,500 in a 403B plan. Now, for some people, that might be half or 3/4 of the salary. So you do have to be careful of that. Another benefit is life insurance. Schools generally have a life insurance plan that they pay for employee. The amount of that life insurance basically is tied in with an individual's salary. So schools need to make sure that they have clearly spelled out their cost for the life insurance policy and what those policies mean to the teachers and support staff. Now, most schools don't offer childcare, but it's something that administrators need to remember. On the screen, you'll see the cost of childcare in the United States. Now, this is the monthly average. So what you're seeing on the screen is that, for instance, in Maryland, the average monthly cost for childcare is $1,100. If you live in Virginia, it's $872 per month. In Georgia, $637. In Kansas, $933. In Louisiana, $478. In Mississippi, $402 per month. That's something to remember as an administrator, simply because that's what a young teacher who has a young child will need to find a way to cover. That cost for childcare doesn't go away. Some Catholic schools have provided the opportunities for childcare within the school. It's something definitely to consider. Now, what other costs are associated with teachers' compensation? Well, that's the FICA breakdown. And that means that 6.2% of an individual salary the school needs to pay to the federal government. The employee, as you well know, also pays 6.2%. That's up to a salary of $147,000. Now, most of our teachers in Catholic schools aren't making that, but it is something for administrators to remember and for teachers to remember when you're talking about compensation packages and the cost of employing an individual. There's also the Medicare tax. The employer pays 1.45%. That 1.45% is also paid by the individual teacher. Now, there's also the issue of workman's compensation. Each state has a slightly different formula, so it's important for you to look at workers' compensation insurance in your particular area. But as an employer, you need to understand who it covers and what it pays. Not all medical bills are paid, not all lost wages. And also, most importantly, under the workman's compensation insurance, you need to make sure that you, as an administrator, understand the settlements and judgments against you and what your options are. Then there's sick leave. And as you see on the screen, if you see the teacher wearing this, the hazmat suit, it's only because she or he has no sick leave left. Again, schools need to make sure, and as most administrators have found out over the last 2 years, we need to find ways to deal with teachers who are sick for a longer period of time. That's an employer cost. It's also a cost to the employee if they go above and beyond the sick leave that they've accumulated. Now on the screen, what you'll see is a breakdown for the compensation costs. What's interesting there is that the wages and salaries only account for about 69.7% of the total compensation package. The health insurance plans cover generally about 7.5%. Social Security and Medicare, retirement and savings, vacations, holidays. Again, those are things that schools need to make sure that they factor into their budget. State unemployment, pension, all of those things. Now, again, this is a slightly outdated because it's from 2018, but it does give you a really good sense of what expenses the school needs to make sure that they build into the budget. And as a result, it impacts the tuition. Benefits are important. Salaries are important. The compensation for teachers is not just a salary. There's a lot more that's involved.